Now, let's move on to a very controversial question that I think is worth talking about, especially when it comes to giving advice to newbies for getting better at copywriting. Hand copying, yeah or nah?
Nah.
Yes, I think. I have opinions on this.
I know.
Do we want to give a round robin?
No, just read carefully.
Lindsay, yeah or nah?
I would say yes, to a degree, but you don't have to go handwrite 8 sales letters. Like, do it a little bit because it forces you to think about what you're doing. So I think it's good practice for that, but I don't think that you have to meet some magic number before you feel like, okay, did
Maybe a
that.
better question: did everyone here handwrite copy? Did you guys do it? I did.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did, and I hated it so much.
Yeah.
While we're talking about breaking down copy and all of that, I find it more advantageous. What I like to do, I like to outline it. Rather than going word by word by word, I like to outline the ideas and think critically about okay, what did the writer want to do here? And then if I almost reverse engineer it as if I was the writer and then I am creating an outline for this idea. That's how I like to approach it. And that helps me tremendously.
So all right, I'm gonna say something, which is I hand copied for oh god, I would say my first maybe 6 months of learning copywriting. I have about 4 or 5 books, kind of thick A4 books down there full of handwritten copy. First thing I'd say is kind of what you're saying, Lindsay. I would then annotate it. So there's no good just copying it down. In my opinion, you have to then go back through what you've written and actually say, this is what I think they were trying to do here. I did that in Red Pen. Here's an observation that I have made. Of everyone I know who's tried to get into copywriting, who has said to me at some point, I want to do copy, I want to become a copywriter. The ones who start by hand copying far outpull those who don't do hand copying. Now, I have a theory for this, which may break the magic of why it works, but Sean, do you think I should? I think you know what I'm going to say. Should I say what I'm going to say?
Please do.
Okay. People who hand copy basically show their commitment for getting into this world.
Yep.
And that is one of the biggest kind of advantages it has. All right. I'm not even going to try and argue it's, it gets it in your brain better or, muscle memory. I don't know if that's true or not. I know there are studies that saying handwriting something does help, but I'm not even going to use that argument. I'm just going to say that if you are prepared to sit down and, as Rod said, frustratingly hand copy something and keep looking up at the screen or print it out and do it next to each other and then go through and annotate it, then you are also far more likely to persist with succeeding. Now, that may be correlation rather than causation, but I do feel like there is a kernel of causation there because it commits you to the life of copywriting and it makes you far more likely to carry through with it. So that is my opinion on hand copying.
Yeah, whoever does this, it can be a good test to sort of unearth the trait of persistence in an individual. It's not like, hey, we say this, you go hand copy now, and you're like, look, I'm committed. But it's more like, if you have been able to be this committed and actually go through that process, you probably can handle the rest of what it takes to become good. For me personally, my most success with studying copy has just been to buy a drawing tablet and to just annotate PDFs on my computer. That works really well for me.
Yes, there's an argument to be made. Some people learn from handwriting copying in the sense that it forces you to pay attention to things at the language level. That's good. Yes, there is a connection between the motor cortex of the brain as well as the hippocampus and the other parts of the brain that are responsible for connecting your brain to form memories. There's an argument to be made there. But I would say that the most important reason to handwrite a piece of copy is, like Alex said, it shows that you can hang. And that goes right back to how we started the show. It's all about mindset. And it's one of those things where whenever I encounter a person who just balks at the notion of handwriting a piece of copy. Oh, my hand would hurt.
It's the same person who expects to get a 6-figure check on their first promo. Like, exactly. Alex, you are spot on in that. And like, I wanted to add on to like what I was saying. It's not about a magic number. Like, it's not about you have to go handwrite 8 sales letters. It's really about, can you slow down enough? Can you force yourself to like study it at such a level that you're capable of like thinking critically about, why did they put this piece here? Like, people aren't attuned to like reading copy like that. It's just like, okay, I'm going to read a bunch, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to read. It's not really about that. It is about like, can you do the tedious practice of like breaking down a sales letter? It's really tedious, and like we'll show some examples of what it looks like. But I think you're spot on, Alex. It's a great observation.
One thing I'll say is, while I don't like the practice for me, I think that having a practice, building a habit of activity you do around your studying can be really, really helpful. I think if you come from a background where reading closely or reading text closely is a skill set you have, it may not be the most useful use of your time, just because you don't need to force yourself to slow down mechanically in order to read the text in that way. And so coming from like a literature or other kinds of writing background, it just like felt like it slowed down things way too much. And I was already getting the point of it just by reading it the first time anyway. If I think you can accomplish a similar thing by just giving yourself a timer, whether that's 30 minutes, whether that's an hour, setting the timer and saying you're going to read for this long, and either you're going to get through the thing and read as far as you can in that amount of time closely. And by setting the timer, it's not going to be over if you read faster. And so there's no point in rushing. But the other thing is that if it's a short piece of text and you get through it in 30 minutes and you have 30 minutes left, you then have to go back through it, or you have to go back and read other parts of it. And so just, again, that intention piece. What are we sitting down and reading this just so we can get through it? Or are we sitting down with this so we can study it? And there are lots of different ways to accomplish that. Handwriting is one of them. Not everyone is going to benefit as much from that, but there are other ways of accomplishing the same thing, even if you hate handwriting or can't write for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, and just for a practical application of this, I used to spend half an hour writing, like actually doing the hand copying. I used to spend half an hour annotating. And then, I mean, when I first started, I used to spend about 2.5, 3 hours a day, like just doing the kind of learning and reading books and stuff like that. And then if not, once I kind of read a few books, it was then practicing. So that I found that was a pretty good, half an hour writing, half an hour then annotating. It's a good hour a day of theory, if you like, but in a very practical way.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that some people learn from it more than others. Some people learn from approaching copy in an entirely different way. The only way to learn, if you can learn in a particular way, is to try it. Yeah. I hand wrote 2 full sales letters over the course of my career over the last 10 years. That was enough. I don't need to do it again. I get more, like Lindsey said, from reverse outlining something, like finding out like the beats, like sectionally, like what's going on here, what's going on here, what's going on here. And then also taking a note of like how they are accomplishing that in that particular section. Like, for example, say I'll make a note about a section of a promo that's like, they are presenting proof about this idea to overcome this objection. Then I'll make another column in my outline and I will say, okay, to actually prove this, what they're doing here is presenting, 3 elements of social proof, 2 examples from history, a partridge in a pear tree, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll just make a note of that, because that will give me a guideline of like, okay, if I need to write a proof section to overcome this sort of objection in a piece of copy that I write in the future, well, I should probably include fairly similar ingredients in the stew of copy that will be my sales letter in the future. And so that is the advice that I would give when it comes to copywriting. Treat it as a rite of passage. And if you learn a lot from it, do it more. If you don't do it anymore. But at least you will have tried it. At least you will have like shown that you have commitment and that you can hang. Because if you can hang, people treat you seriously. And especially in certain facets of this world, like if you have not handwritten sales letters, or if you're the type of person who's just like, handwriting, why would I do that? That's a waste of time. You will immediately be considered a non-serious person in their eyes. And if you want clients, if you want a job, you don't want that.